it's rarely about looks alone. When men talk about attraction, the conversation almost always drifts toward appearance first. Height, jawlines, muscles, hair, clothes. Social media makes this even worse because it constantly presents attraction as if it happens in a single frozen moment. A photograph, a profile picture, a quick glance across a room. But most attraction doesn't live in snapshots. It lives in experiences. It lives in what it feels like to spend an hour with you, then an afternoon with you, then a week around you. That's where habits start mattering more than most men realize. A woman can notice your appearance in seconds, but she experiences your habits over time. She experiences how you react when plans fall apart. She experiences whether conversations with you feel easy or exhausting. She experiences whether your confidence feels genuine or fragile. The truth is that many men spend years trying to optimize how they look, while paying very little attention to how they feel to be around. Yet, when women describe the men who left the strongest impressions on them, they often end up describing behaviors more than physical traits. They talk about how calm he was, how reliable he was, how easy he made people feel, how he carried himself when nobody was paying attention. Those things don't show up in a photograph, but they become impossible to ignore once someone spends enough time with you. What's fascinating is that habits reveal things appearance cannot. A good-looking man can appear confident for 5 minutes. A habit reveals whether confidence is actually there. A stylish outfit can create a great first impression. A habit reveals what happens after the first impression wears off. Anyone can look impressive under perfect circumstances. Habits reveal who you are when life becomes inconvenient. That's why women often pay attention to behaviors that men don't even realize are being observed. She's noticing whether you keep your word. She's noticing whether you complain constantly or adapt when things go wrong. She's noticing how you treat people who can't do anything for you. She's noticing whether you need constant validation or whether you're comfortable in your own skin. Most of these observations happen quietly. She may never mention them. She may not even consciously realize she's collecting them. But every interaction is creating a picture. Every habit adds another brushstroke. Over time, that picture becomes far more important than whatever attracted her initially. Physical attraction might open the door. Habits often determine whether she wants to keep walking through it. The irony is that many of the habits women find most attractive are not flashy at all. They don't generate huge reactions online. They don't make for dramatic stories. In fact, some of them seem almost boring when viewed from a distance. Reliability isn't exciting until you've dealt with unreliability. Emotional stability isn't exciting until you've experienced constant chaos. Direct communication isn't exciting until you've spent months trying to decode mixed signals. Many of the habits that create deep attraction are attractive precisely because they make life easier, calmer, and more enjoyable for the people around you. They create trust, they create comfort, they create respect. And unlike physical traits, they are almost entirely within your control. You don't need different genetics to develop them. You don't need luck. You don't need perfect circumstances. You simply need to practice them consistently enough that they become part of who you are. And one of the first habits that quietly separates attractive men from everyone else is surprisingly simple. When things go wrong, they stay calm while everyone else is losing control. He stays calm when things go wrong. One of the most attractive things a man can bring into a woman's life is not excitement. It's not mystery. It's not even confidence in the way people usually talk about confidence. It's stability under pressure. Most people look good when everything is going their way. The real test comes when something breaks, fails, gets delayed, falls apart, or refuses to happen according to plan. That's where character becomes visible. Anybody can smile when the flight is on time, the money is coming in, the relationship is smooth, and the day is unfolding exactly as expected. What stands out is the man who remains composed when none of those things are true. The restaurant loses the reservation. The project hits a problem. Traffic turns a short drive into a nightmare. Something expensive stops working. Instead of spiraling, complaining endlessly, blaming everyone around him, or spreading stress to every person in the room, he focuses on solving the problem. He accepts reality quickly and starts dealing with it. This habit is attractive because it creates a feeling of safety. Not physical safety necessarily, but emotional safety. People relax around someone who doesn't turn every inconvenience into a crisis. They trust him more because they know difficult situations won't automatically become chaotic situations. What's interesting is that calmness is often mistaken for passivity. They're completely different things. Passive people avoid problems. Calm people face problems without losing control of themselves. A calm man still gets frustrated. He still has bad days. He still feels disappointment, stress, anger, and pressure. The difference is that his emotions don't immediately take over the steering wheel. He doesn't let a temporary setback dictate his behavior toward everyone around him. Think about how rare that actually is. Most people become whatever emotion they're feeling in the moment. If they're annoyed, everyone knows it. If they're stressed, the entire room starts feeling stressed too. If something goes wrong, they need everybody else to experience the frustration alongside them. A calm man doesn't do that. He understands that adding more emotional chaos rarely improves a difficult situation. So, while everyone else is focused on how unfair the problem is, he's focused on what can be done next. Women notice this because it changes the entire experience of being around him. His presence feels steady, predictable, grounded. Not because life is always easy for him, but because he doesn't fall apart every time life becomes difficult. The older you get, the more attractive this habit becomes. In your early years, drama can sometimes be mistaken for passion. Emotional volatility can occasionally be confused with intensity. But eventually, reality teaches people a lesson. Living around constant chaos is exhausting. Walking on eggshells around someone's moods is exhausting. Never knowing whether a small inconvenience will trigger a major reaction is exhausting. That's when emotional steadiness starts looking incredibly attractive. The man who remains composed during pressure isn't boring. He's valuable. He becomes the person others naturally turn toward when things get difficult, because his reactions make situations better instead of worse. And perhaps the most attractive part is that he doesn't stay calm to impress anyone. He stays calm because he's learned that panic doesn't solve problems. Anger doesn't repair mistakes. Complaining doesn't create solutions. That mindset quietly changes how people see him. It communicates competence without him having to announce it. It communicates confidence without him having to perform it. And once a woman sees that kind of stability consistently, another habit becomes equally powerful. It's the habit of making people feel genuinely heard instead of constantly redirecting every conversation back to himself. He pays attention without making it about himself. A lot of men think attraction is created by saying impressive things. They believe the goal of a conversation is to prove their value, showcase their accomplishments, demonstrate their intelligence, or make sure a woman leaves knowing exactly how interesting they are. The problem is that when someone becomes too focused on being interesting, they often stop being interested. Every story becomes an opportunity to top her story. Every topic somehow circles back to their experiences. Every conversation turns into a performance. At first, this can even look like confidence, because the man appears comfortable talking about himself. But after a while, something starts feeling off. The interaction feels one-sided. It feels like two people taking turns waiting to speak, rather than two people genuinely connecting. What stands out far more is the man who pays attention. The man who actually listens to what she's saying, instead of scanning for his next line. The man who asks questions because he's curious, not because he's following some dating strategy. The man who remembers details because he was genuinely engaged in the conversation, rather than mentally rehearsing a better story about himself. That kind of attention is surprisingly rare, which is exactly why it leaves such a strong impression. One reason this habit is so attractive is that it makes people feel seen. And being seen is different from being noticed. Plenty of people notice others. They register their existence. They hear the words coming out of their mouths. But truly paying attention requires something deeper. It requires presence. Imagine mentioning a goal you're working toward, then having someone remember it weeks later and ask how it's progressing. Imagine briefly mentioning a family member, then discovering the person remembers their name during a future conversation. Imagine sharing an opinion and realizing the other person actually thought about what you said, instead of immediately waiting for their chance to disagree or redirect the discussion. These moments feel good because they communicate respect. They tell someone, what you said mattered enough for me to remember it. Attraction often grows in environments where people feel understood, not analyzed, not interrogated, understood. And understanding is built through attention. The man who listens well isn't simply collecting information. He's showing that the person in front of him is more important than the image he's trying to project. The mistake many men make is assuming that listening is passive. In reality, good listening is one of the most active things you can do. It requires curiosity. It requires patience. It requires resisting the urge to constantly steer conversations towards subjects that make you look good. And perhaps most importantly, it requires confidence. Insecure people often feel compelled to prove themselves in every interaction. They worry that if they aren't constantly demonstrating their value, they'll be overlooked. Confident people don't carry that pressure. They can relax enough to focus on someone else because they aren't desperately trying to manage how they're perceived every second of the conversation. Women notice that difference. They notice when a man is present instead of performing. They notice when he cares more about understanding than impressing. And ironically, that's often what makes him more impressive. Because genuine attention has become rare in a world where everyone is competing to be heard. A man who can give it consistently stands out without trying. And when that attention is paired with another attractive habit, having a life that feels meaningful, even when nobody is watching, the effect becomes even stronger. He has a life he enjoys, even when nobody is watching. One of the most attractive qualities a man can have is a life that doesn't pause when nobody is paying attention. Not because he's trying to appear mysterious, not because he's playing hard to get, not because he's following some dating rule that says people should seem unavailable. What makes this habit attractive is much simpler than that. His life has momentum. He wakes up with things he wants to do, places he wants to go, skills he wants to build, responsibilities he wants to handle, and experiences he genuinely enjoys, whether anyone applauds them or not. A lot of people unknowingly build their lives around being observed. They become excited about goals when other people notice them. They stay motivated when validation is present. They enjoy activities that generate attention. But when the audience disappears, so does the energy. A man with a life he genuinely enjoys doesn't operate that way. He reads because he enjoys learning. He trains because he likes feeling strong and capable. He works toward goals because they matter to him, not because somebody might be impressed by them. There is something incredibly attractive about a person whose happiness is not dependent on being constantly entertained, admired, or reassured. His life already has movement before anyone enters it. Women often pick up on this faster than men realize, not through grand achievements necessarily, but through the way he carries himself. He doesn't seem desperate for every interaction to become something bigger. He doesn't act like a date is the most important event of his week. He isn't secretly hoping one person will solve his loneliness, provide his purpose, fix his boredom, and become the center of his world. That's a heavy burden to place on another human being, and people can usually feel it when it's happening. On the other hand, a man who already enjoys his own life brings a completely different energy into relationships. He's not looking for someone to rescue him from emptiness. He's looking for someone to share an already meaningful life with. That distinction matters. One creates pressure. The other creates freedom. The relationship becomes something valuable rather than something necessary for his emotional survival. Ironically, this often makes him more attractive because his interest feels genuine rather than needy. He wants her in his life, but his entire identity isn't hanging on the outcome. Perhaps the most appealing part of this habit is that it communicates self-respect without ever having to announce it. A man who invests in his own life sends a quiet message. He believes his time has value. He believes his growth matters. He believes his future deserves attention. That mindset affects everything. It affects how he spends his evenings. It affects who he surrounds himself with. It affects the opportunities he pursues and the opportunities he declines. And because he isn't constantly chasing approval, he becomes much harder to shake. Rejection hurts, but it doesn't destroy him. Disappointment stings, but it doesn't leave him directionless. He has too many things happening in his own world to collapse every time one area of life doesn't go according to plan. That's incredibly attractive because it creates emotional stability and independence at the same time. And once a man has built that kind of foundation, another habit naturally starts becoming easier. He no longer feels the need to win every discussion, prove every point, or turn every disagreement into a competition. He doesn't need to win every conversation. There is a certain kind of man who treats every conversation like a contest. It doesn't matter whether the topic is sports, relationships, movies, politics, travel, or something completely trivial. If a different opinion enters the room, he immediately feels challenged. If someone disagrees with him, he starts building a case. If a conversation presents even the smallest opportunity to prove he's right, he grabs it. The strange thing is that many of these men believe this behavior makes them look strong. They think constantly defending their position demonstrates intelligence, confidence, or leadership. In reality, it often communicates the opposite. Truly confident people don't feel threatened by every disagreement. They don't need universal approval. They don't need every discussion to end with a clear winner and loser. They can hear a different perspective without immediately preparing for battle. Women notice this because conversations with these men feel completely different. Instead of feeling like an exchange of ideas, they feel like a courtroom where every statement must be defended. After a while, that becomes exhausting. Nobody enjoys feeling like they're constantly one sentence away from an argument. What makes a man attractive in conversation isn't that he always agrees. It's that he knows how to disagree without becoming defensive. He can hear an opinion he doesn't share and remain curious instead of combative. He can challenge an idea without attacking the person expressing it. He can admit when someone makes a good point. He can even change his mind when presented with better information. That level of flexibility requires a surprising amount of confidence because it means his identity isn't tied to being right all the time. Think about how rare that actually is. Many people become emotionally attached to their opinions. The moment an opinion is challenged, they feel personally challenged. That's why discussions so often spiral into arguments that have very little to do with the original topic. A man who doesn't operate this way stands out immediately. Conversations with him feel lighter, more open, more enjoyable. People don't have to constantly monitor their words or prepare for pushback. They can simply talk. That creates a sense of ease that is far more attractive than the ability to dominate every debate. The deeper reason this habit matters is because relationships are full of disagreements. No two people will see everything the same way. There will be different preferences, different priorities, different perspectives, and different experiences. If every disagreement becomes a battle for dominance, the relationship slowly turns into a competition instead of a partnership. Women understand this instinctively, even if they never say it out loud. They pay attention to how a man handles small disagreements because those moments reveal how he'll handle larger ones later. The man who can stay calm, listen, and discuss without needing to crush the opposing viewpoint communicates something valuable. He communicates emotional security. He communicates maturity. He communicates that his ego isn't so fragile that every difference of opinion feels like a threat. That's attractive because it creates room for genuine connection. And perhaps even more importantly, it creates trust. People trust those who don't constantly need to prove themselves. They trust those who can remain grounded when challenged. They trust those who value understanding more than victory. And that trust grows even stronger when it's backed by another habit that women find incredibly attractive: the habit of quietly handling responsibilities instead of constantly talking about them. He takes care of small responsibilities immediately. One of the least glamorous yet most attractive habits a man can have is handling things when they need to be handled. Not next week, not when he feels motivated, not after 3 reminders. He simply takes care of them. He returns the call, pays the bill, fixes the problem, sends the message, keeps the appointment. Most people don't realize how much attraction is influenced by reliability, because reliability doesn't create dramatic stories. It creates peace. A woman doesn't have to wonder whether he'll follow through, because his actions consistently answer that question for her. This habit becomes even more attractive because it demonstrates respect. When a man says he'll do something and then does it, he's showing that his words mean something. Too many people make promises based on good intentions and then disappear when action is required. Over time, trust isn't built by grand declarations. It's built by hundreds of small moments where someone proves they can be counted on. The man who follows through stands out because reliability has become surprisingly rare. The best part is that he doesn't seek praise for it. He doesn't expect applause for meeting his responsibilities. He handles them because that's what adults do. That quiet consistency creates a sense of stability that many women find incredibly attractive. And when people know they can depend on you, they naturally feel more comfortable around you, which leads directly to the next habit: